My whole life has been a gilded cage, locked with the keys of obedience and purity. I grew up under the watchful eye of my father, a man who molded me to be the perfect daughter, untouched, immaculate, a shiny coin saved for the right moment. At 23, I had never felt the brush of a kiss, the warmth of a forbidden touch. But that all ended the day he walked into my room, his face pale with embarrassment, and said, "You're getting married, Clara. We don't have a choice. Get married." My stomach churned. My father's financial empire had collapsed, and I was the last asset he could trade. The buyer, Justin Blackwood, the ruthless millionaire, a name that made men shudder and women whisper. I'd seen him once in a magazine, his dark eyes sharp as steel, his body sculpted with power. He wasn't just rich, he was dangerous, a predator who took what he wanted without asking permission. The wedding was a cold formality. A dress I didn't choose, a yes I didn't mean, a contract signed in cold black ink. There was no party, just a black car taking me to his mansion, a fortress of glass and stone that swallowed the sunlight. My new home. My new prison. The driver dropped me off in the master bedroom, a huge suite with dark walls and a bed that looked like a sacrificial altar. My heart was beating so fast that I could hardly breathe. The wedding dress still clung to my body like a shroud. Then I heard the door open behind me. I turned around, and there he was, Justin Blackwood, my husband. His jacket thrown over a chair, his tie loose, his shirt ajar, revealing a firm chest. His eyes met mine, and the air became thick, suffocating. "Did you really think you'd sleep alone tonight?" His voice was a low purr, laden with menace and promise. He took a step forward, and I stepped back, my back hitting the wall. "You're my wife now, Clara, and I always take what's mine." My legs trembled, the dress heavy against my skin. I don't know what you expect of me," I stammered, my voice weak, almost swallowed up by fear. He smiled a slow, dangerous smile that made my stomach knot. "Everything," he replied, stopping inches from me, his scent enveloped me, something masculine, musky, intoxicating. "Every bit of you." Before I could protest, he grabbed my wrist, pulling me against him. My body collided with his, hard and hot, and I choked, dread mixed with a warmth I didn't understand. His fingers slid down my arm, up to my neck, and then he grabbed my chin, forcing me to face him. "You're a virgin, aren't you?" he asked, his eyes narrowed as if he already knew the answer. I swallowed the tears burning my eyes. "Yes," I admitted, the word almost a whisper. The gleam in his eyes changed, becoming hungrier, darker. "Perfect," he murmured. Then his lips were on mine, hard, demanding, stealing the air from my lungs. I froze, not knowing what to do, but he didn't stop. His hand slid to my waist, pulling me deeper against him, while the other went down the zipper of my dress. The fabric fell to the floor, leaving me with only the white lingerie I was wearing underneath. "No," I tried to say, but he drowned out my words with another kiss, deeper, more voracious. My body betrayed my mind, arching against him, the heat rising up my thighs. He lifted me effortlessly, throwing me onto the bed, and before I could move, he was on top of me, the weight of his body pinning me to the mattress. "You're mine," he growled, his fingers tearing through the lace of my lingerie as if it were paper. I screamed, but the sound was lost when he touched me, his hands exploring every inch of me with a precision that left me breathless. The first time was slow, almost cruel, as he guided me through the unknown, his eyes fixed on mine, savoring every shudder, every sigh I couldn't contain. I didn't know what pain or pleasure was, it was all at once, a storm engulfing me. He relaxed for a moment, but then he came again, faster, hungrier, as if he couldn't get enough. My body responded, my hands gripping his shoulders, and I heard myself moaning, asking for more, even though I didn't want to. He laughed low against my neck, possessing me again and again until the world dissolved in heat and exhaustion. There were several times that night, each one more intense, more overwhelming, until I no longer knew where I ended and he began. When he finally stopped, I was panting, my body aching and alive in a way I'd never imagined. He pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me like chains, and whispered, you'll never be free again." And I feared he was right. The morning light seeped through the heavy curtains, but it brought no relief. My body ached, a throbbing memory of the night before, of Justin's hands, his weight, the way he took me over and over again until I no longer knew who I was. I was lying in bed, the sheets tangled around me, his scent still clinging to my skin. He wasn't there. The room was silent, but I could feel his presence in every corner, like a specter that haunted me, even though he was gone. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling, and pulled on the silk robe I found lying on the floor. My hands trembled as I tied it, the memory of his fingers tearing at my lingerie coming back in waves. I was supposed to hate him. He forced me into this, ripped me away from a life I knew, and threw me into an abyss of desire and fear. But what burned me most wasn't what he did, it was what I did. I gave myself away, not just once, but several times, arching up against him, asking for more with moans I didn't even know I could emit. The door opened, and my heart raced. There he was, Justin Blackwood, wearing an impeccable black shirt, his hair damp as if he'd just stepped out of the shower. His eyes met mine, and the air became thick again, charged with an electricity I couldn't ignore. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, his voice low, but with a teasing tone that made my cheeks burn. "No," I replied, crossing my arms over my chest, trying to regain some control. "How could I?" He took a step forward, a crooked smile curving his lips. "You looked very satisfied last night," he said, his eyes trailing down my body as if he could see through the robe. "Shouting my name like that." I blushed, the heat rising to my ears. "You forced me," I retorted, but the words sounded fragile, almost like a lie. He laughed, a roar of sound that echoed through the room. "Forced?" He moved closer, and I stepped back until I felt the bed behind me. "You spread your legs for me, Clara, not once, but several times. Don't lie to me, or to yourself." His fingers brushed my arm, a light touch that set my skin on fire. I wanted to push him away, to scream, but my body reacted before my mind could. My breath became short, my lips parted. He saw. Of course, he always did. "Stop," I whispered, but my voice came out as a moan, betraying me once again. "Why?" He grabbed my chin, forcing me to face him. His eyes were black abysses pulling me in. "You want it as much as I do. You just don't know how to ask for it." "You don't know me," I said, trying to hold on to what was left of my dignity. "You think I'm just something for you to use?" He tilted his head, his fingers gripping my chin tighter. "I know you're my wife," he replied, his voice sharp. "And I know you've never felt a man before me. That makes you mine, Clara. Completely mine." He pulled me against him, his firm body glued to mine, and I choked on the impact. His lips brushed my neck. Not a kiss, but a tease, a test. "Tell me you don't want to," he whispered against my skin, his warm breath making my knees weak. "Tell me, and I'll stop." I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. My body was screaming for him, a need I hated but couldn't deny. He laughed low, his teeth nibbling at my collarbone, and I shuddered, grabbing his shirt without even realizing it. "That's what I thought," he said, and then pushed me back against the bed. His hands slid to my waist, the robe opened, and his eyes shone with that hunger I'd seen the night before. "You're weak, Clara. A spoiled little girl who doesn't know what she wants. But I'll teach you." "You're cruel," I managed to say, but my body arched against his, betraying every word. "And you like it," he retorted, his fingers tracing the curve of my hip. "You like being mine." He was right, and I hated him for it. I hated the heat that ran up my legs, the way my heart beat faster when he touched me. He was more dangerous than I had imagined, not just for what he could do to me, but for what he made me want. Then a sound cut through the air, the insistent ringing of a phone on the bedside table. Justin cursed, reluctantly releasing me, but his eyes didn't leave mine as he answered. "What is it?" he growled into the handset, his voice as sharp as a blade. He listened for a moment, jaw clenched, then hung up, throwing the phone on the bed. Problems? I asked, trying to sound indifferent, but my voice was shaking. He stared at me, his dark eyes filled with an intensity that made me flinch. Your father, he said, the word laden with venom. He wants you back. He says the contract wasn't fulfilled. We're going to town now. You're coming with me. My stomach churned. Back to my father? But before I could process it, Justin grabbed my wrist, pulling me to him again. You're not going anywhere, he whispered, his lips brushing against my ear. Not without me. And then I knew we were stuck with each other, whether we wanted to be or not. The black car cut across the road like a blade, the roar of the engine filling the tense silence between Justin and me. I was in the back seat, my robe replaced by a simple dress that a maid had handed me before we left in a hurry. He was driving, his knuckles white against the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on the road, but I knew his mind was on me. I could feel it in the way he looked at me before pulling me into the car, in the unspoken promise that I wouldn't escape him, no matter what my father said. What does he want? I finally asked, my voice cutting through the air like a fragile thread. Justin didn't answer straight away. He glanced quickly through the rearview mirror, his dark eyes meeting mine for a second before returning to the road. Money, he said, the word laden with contempt. He thinks he can renegotiate you as if you were returned merchandise. My stomach churned. I knew my father saw me as an asset, but to hear it so bluntly coming from Justin was a punch. What about you? I asked hesitantly. What do you think I am? He broke the car hard, the sound of the tires screeching against the asphalt. Before I could react, he turned in his seat, his whole body facing me, his eyes burning with an intensity that made me back away from the door. You're mine, he growled, his voice low and dangerous. I don't need to explain that to him or to you. I swallowed the heat rising in my neck. He got out of the car, opening my door and pulling me out with a force that brooked no resistance. We were on a deserted street on our way into town, but he didn't seem to mind. He pushed me against the still warm hood of the car, his hands grabbing my wrists, his face inches from mine. Do you think I brought you here to negotiate? He asked, his lips almost brushing mine. I bought you, Clara. I took you. You're my wife, my woman, and nobody's going to change that. I didn't ask for it, I retorted, my voice trembling but with a spark of defiance I didn't know I had. He laughed, a harsh, cutting sound. You didn't ask for it? His fingers slid down my neck, squeezing lightly, possessively. You opened yourself up to me in that bed. You let me possess you again and again. Don't pretend you didn't want to. I blushed, the memories of our wedding night coming back in flashes, the moans, the touches, the pleasure I couldn't deny. But before I could answer, he released me, taking a step back. His eyes narrowed as if he was seeing something new in me. Why don't you ever? He stopped, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed almost vulnerable. Why are you still like this? So untouched, even after me? I blinked, confused. What do you mean? He stared at me, his jaw clenched. Then the words came out as if he couldn't hold them back any longer. You're a virgin in every way, Clara. Not just in your body, in your head, in the way you look at me. I thought you were like the others, a girl who would play the game, who would know how to manipulate me. But you don't even know what you're doing to me. The shock hit me like a bolt of lightning. He'd been wrong about me all along. He thought I was a calculated piece of work, a woman molded for his world. But I was a void, a blank canvas that he had painted with his hands last night, and now he was realizing it. I'm not what you think, I said, my voice firm for the first time. I never wanted this game. He took a step forward, his eyes wide as if he were seeing a ghost. No, he muttered, almost to himself. You're more, much more. And then something changed. He pulled me against him, but this time it wasn't just desire. There was a different urgency, a need that went beyond the physical. His lips found mine, but the kiss was almost hesitant, as if he was testing something new. When he pulled away, his eyes shone with an emotion I'd never seen in him before, jealousy, perhaps, or something deeper. Have you ever been with anyone before me? He asked, his voice hoarse, his hands tightening around my waist. No, I answered truthfully, and saw the muscle in his jaw twitch. Good, he said, his fingers digging into my skin. Because I can't even bear to imagine it. I was breathless. He was jealous, not of someone real, but of the idea that I could belong to someone else. He wanted me all to himself, and this need was beginning to consume him. He tried to pull away. He tried to hide it, but the desire was growing, a flame he couldn't extinguish. Come on, he finally said, pulling me back into the car. Your father will learn that you're not his anymore. But as we got into the car, I saw the look in his eyes in the rearview mirror, wild, possessive, almost lost. He thought he controlled me, but something in him was changing. I wasn't who he thought I was, and it was destroying him. And somehow, I knew that this would only pull us deeper into each other. The drive back to the mansion was a blur of silence and tension. Justin held my hand tightly, as if afraid I'd vanish, but his eyes were distant, lost in a battle I could only guess at. When we arrived, he let go abruptly, storming up the stairs without a word. I followed, my heart pounding, sensing something was about to explode. In the bedroom, he tossed his jacket to the floor, his trembling hands fumbling with his shirt buttons. Go away, he said, his voice hoarse, not looking at me. Sleep in another room. I can't. I can't right now. I stopped at the door, confused. Why? I asked, stepping forward. You said I was yours. He turned, his eyes wild, his chest heaving with heavy breaths. Because I'll hurt you, he replied, the words almost a shout. I don't know who I am around you anymore, Clara. You've destroyed me. I should have backed away, but I didn't. Instead, I moved closer, my hands reaching for his face. He froze, eyes wide, as if my touch were a shock. You won't hurt me. I said, my voice steady, certain for the first time. You can't, he grabbed my wrists, pulling me against him, but there was desperation in that grip. You don't understand, he whispered, his face inches from mine. I want you too much, and if I lose you, I won't survive. Then it all shattered. A phone rang, the shrill sound cutting through the air. From his pocket, he cursed, answering with a growl. What? He snapped, but his face shifted as he listened. He hung up, his eyes meeting mine with a dread I'd never seen. Your father, he said, his voice trembling. He hired lawyers. Says you were coerced. They're coming to take you. My world spun. Go back to my father, to that caged life? Before I could respond, Justin dropped to his knees before me, hands clutching my waist as if I were his salvation. Don't go, he begged, his voice breaking. I can't. I can't live without you, Clara. Please. I stared at him, stunned. The man who'd claimed me on our wedding night, who dominated me with every touch, was there on his knees, a lovesick puppy begging for me. And then I knew, he was mine now as much as I'd once been his. I won't, I said, kneeling to meet him, my hands cupping his face. But you have to want me for real. Not as a possession. As I am. He pulled me into his chest, arms wrapping around me with desperate strength. I want you, he murmured into my hair. Anyway, just don't leave me. I hugged him back, feeling the warmth of his body, the tremble in his hands. But then I heard tires on the gravel outside, lawyers or worse were here. Justin stood, his eyes hardening, but I grabbed his hand, pulling him back. Let me talk to them, I said, my voice calm but firm. I choose you. He stared at me, his face a mix of shock and relief, then nodded, his fingers lacing through mine. Prove it, he whispered, and I knew what he meant. I pulled him to me, my lips meeting his in a kiss that was more than desire, it was a promise. He moaned against my mouth, hands running up my back, and for a moment, the world outside vanished. He was mine completely, and I finally understood the power I held over him. When we parted, he sank to his knees again, but this time with a faint smile, his eyes shining with something I'd never seen in him before, love. "I'm yours, Clara," he said, his voice soft. "Do whatever you want with me." And I knew he'd do anything to have me back, to keep me, because he couldn't live without me anymore. The rest of the drive to the city was a charged silence. The air inside the car was so thick, I could barely breathe. Justin gripped the wheel with white-knuckled intensity, his eyes fixed on the road, but I knew his mind was on me. My skin still tingled where he touched me, my traitorous body recalling every second of our wedding night and the kiss on the car hood. I wanted to hate him, but what burned inside me was messier, more dangerous, a mix of fear and desire I didn't know how to control. We pulled up to a glass-walled building in the city's heart, a place screaming power and money. My father was there, waiting in a conference room, his eyes red from sleepless nights. He stood as we entered, but before he could speak, Justin stepped forward, pulling me to his side with a firm arm around my waist. "You've lost, Valente," he said, his voice slicing like ice. "She's my wife. The contract's signed. It's over." My father opened his mouth but faltered, his gaze darting between me and Justin. "Clara, you don't have to do this," he tried, his voice shaky. "We can find another way." "She already did," Justin cut in, his fingers digging into my waist possessively. "She's mine now. Get out before I destroy you completely." I should have spoken, said something, but I stayed silent. The heat of Justin's body against mine rooted me in place. My father gave me one last look of defeat, of regret, and left, the door slamming behind him. When we were alone, Justin released me, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "He won't touch you again," he said, his voice low, almost a vow. "No one will." "And you?" I asked, boldness slipping out before I could stop it. "You touch me whenever you want," he froze, his eyes narrowing, then stepped forward, pinning me against the conference table. "Because I can," he replied, his hands braced on the wood, caging me without even touching me. "Because you're mine, Clara. And I want you." His tone was firm, but there was something new there, a crack in the armor of control he wore so well. He wanted to touch me, protect me, own me, and I saw it in every tense muscle of his body. But he didn't move, not yet. "Then why don't you?" I taunted, the words spilling out as a challenge. I didn't know where this courage came from, but it was there, burning inside me. He laughed, a rough sound that made my heart race. "You want to play with me, little girl?" He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. "Careful, I play to win." And then he touched me, not like on our wedding night with that wild urgency, but with a deliberate slowness that was almost worse. His fingers slid up my arm to my neck, then cradled my face, his thumbs tracing my lips. I shivered, heat pooling between my thighs, and he saw. His eyes darkened, his breathing growing heavier. "You don't know what you do to me," he murmured, almost to himself. I try not to care, but you." He stopped, his grip tightening on my face. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice a whisper laced with curiosity. He pulled me against him, his lips a breath from mine. And for a moment, I swore he'd kiss me. I could feel the heat of his mouth, the tremor in his hands, the war he fought within himself. But he didn't give in. Instead, his hand slid to my waist, lifting me onto the table with an ease that stole my breath. "You drive me crazy," he said, his voice hoarse, his eyes locked on mine as his hands parted my dress, sliding up my legs. "I want to protect you, destroy you, have you again and again until you can't think of anything else." I gasped, his touch igniting my skin, but he stopped, his fingers hovering dangerously close to the edge. He was trembling, then pulled back, breathing hard, fists clenched at his sides. "I can't," he said, more to himself than me. "Not here. Not like this." "Why?" I asked, breathless, my body still buzzing from the near touch. He looked at me, his eyes wild, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. "Because I'm lost in you, Clara," he admitted, his voice breaking. "And I don't know how to stop." I was speechless, my heart pounding. He tried to convince himself I was just a possession, but his actions said otherwise. The way he held me, hesitated, looked at me like I was more than he could bear. He'd fallen into his own trap, and in that moment, I knew he wouldn't let me go, not because I was his on paper, but because he needed me. "Let's go home," he said, finally pulling me off the table, his finger lacing through mine with an unexpected tenderness. "I can't stand being this close and this far from you anymore." And as we left, I felt the weight of the truth. He was trapped in me, and I was starting to want to be trapped in him. The lawyers pounded on the door, but I didn't let them in. With Justin by my side, I faced them in the garden, my voice steady as I said, "I chose to stay. He's my husband. Leave. Leave." They wavered, but Justin's gaze, wild, protective, made them retreat. When the door closed behind us, he pulled me against him, his lips crashing into mine in a hungry kiss, as if he needed to prove I was real. I surrendered, no longer out of fear or force, but out of love, a love that bloomed from the ashes of his obsession. He dropped to his knees, hands sliding up my legs, his eyes gleaming with devotion. "I love you, Clara," he whispered, his voice raw, rough. "You saved me from myself." I smiled, pulling him up, my fingers tracing his face. "I love you," I replied, sealing the words with a soft kiss. He lifted me into his arms, carrying me to the bedroom. And there, amid sheets and promises, we gave ourselves to each other, not as predator and prey, but as equals. The ruthless millionaire bowed to me, and I sighed, finally free to love him.